Hello and welcome. Today we've got the pleasure of being joined by Chris Jenkins. So Chris is a very old friend of mine. We had one of our first jobs together and I always remember that Chris was the physio that I worked with that would ask the challenging questions again and again and again. Chris has worked in elite sports, specifically rugby, for quite a long time now, and is now working with the Russian rugby team and returned from the Russian World Cup earlier this year. So welcome, Chris. Thank you so much for giving us your time today.
Thank you, Kate. No, it's good to catch up. And, I do remember our time in Gloucester Royal it's very warming to me. We had good times, and it was always good to know that the Gloucester and Cheltenham, there was always this kind of banter going back and forth, the dark side and we had good fun in outpatients there, musculoskeletal. It was good, really good.
So more or less, once we both left working there, you went straight to do a master's, as I recall, in sports physiotherapy and have pretty well worked in rugby since then. Can you just tell us a little bit about your career since you left the NHS?
Yeah, so I mean, I was in Wales in the NHS and then moved over to Gloucester Royal Hospital with you guys, and I had a good time there. But I'd always had done some sports work, predominantly rugby work on the side, and I was looking for the next step. And it was put to me after an interview that I failed at the English Institute of Sport that I needed my master's in physiotherapy or in sports physiotherapy to get on, as well as more experience. There was always that kind of double-edged, always that tricky scenario where someone says you need experience in professional sports to work in professional sports, but how do you get the experience if you can't get the job because you haven't got the experience? So doing the masters at King's College London just I looked at various options, and that one suited me the most, and I knew quite a few physiotherapists in London as well, so I bit the bullet and did a year's full-time, and lived like a student again, very cheaply, but it was a great year. Made lots of good contacts and visited lots of football clubs and rugby clubs. And towards the end of the Masters, I heard about a job going at London Welsh Rugby Club in Richmond, Surrey, and they were a semi-professional team going into full-time professional rugby for the first time because they wanted to work their way up the leagues. And the English Championship was just about to be set up. And I went for the interview and I got selected, and that was a solo physiotherapist role. So I was the head physiotherapist, technically the only physiotherapist, with one strength and conditioning coach, two coaches, a kit man and a team manager, and then I was probably about 42 players, maybe a few more as injuries came in over the course of that season. And off I went, really, using my knowledge and my experience from the past and from the university and all the experience I had with the various football and rugby teams while I was doing my masters, and the people I met, and a few mentors and a bit of mentorship from the Harlequins physiotherapist, Richard Bamford, and from some football physios. So that just just went from there, really. I was there for 6 years, and we went on a roller coaster ride through the Championship, up into the Premiership, down again, back into the Championship, and then we got promoted again up into the Premiership. And at that point I decided to leave, and I moved to Wales and interviewed and got the head physiotherapy role with Newport Dragons. And I was years, and after that then had a year in private practice back in London, and towards the end of that year I got some experience with Canada Rugby, and then I got offered the role as head physiotherapist with Russian Rugby.
Wow. Wow, I didn't even know that rugby was played in Russia until you told me, or I saw a
Yeah,
Facebook post
no,
of yours.
it's got a long history. It just went quiet for a little while, um, but it's got a very long history. And someone just showed me the other day on Instagram. They showed Soviet Union versus Crusaders Rugby in New Zealand, a tour of New Zealand in 1991, of Soviet Union. An old program. It's amazing to see, but they're just they they they're building, and they're building again now. And since the World Cup last year, they were in the 2011 World Cup, and they didn't go to the 2015, but 2019 World Cup, which I was with them for last September. They 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 had the opening game, and they had
Hang on a
Japan.
second. Before we get on to the World Cup and your experience
Yeah.
there, which obviously we want to hear all about, how does a Welshman end up being the physio for the Russian rugby team? Are there no physios in Russia?
That's a very good question.
And in fact, there are three of you, three Welshmen working for the Russian rugby team, yeah?
Yes, yeah. So I think, and I think this goes for all walks of life. And I completely agree. There's lots of good physiotherapists out there. There's lots of good therapists and strength and conditioning coaches, and it's all about you need to be able to do your job and do your job well. But at the same time, you need to make good relationships in life, in careers, and in business. And I've made some good relationships over the years. And I got approached by the ex-head coach of London Welsh and the Dragons. So the head coach of Russia Rugby is Lynn Jones. And he approached me. Yeah, and he approached me for the role. A bit of an internal review. They had doctors, they had masseurs, but they were just missing that gap in the middle. And I think a lot of the doctors tend to do a little bit more of, some of the physiotherapy work there, like Compex and maybe Shockwave, and the masseurs are like a cross between nurses and masseurs, so they can actually do injections for pain relief, and they do a lot of the hands-on treatment and that physiotherapy, ultrasound modalities. But with regards to exercise rehabilitation to that high level, high performance, there was a gap. So that's where I fitted in.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Now, Chris, do you speak any Russian?
Я говорю хорошо по-русски. My Ruski плохой.
Oh, jolly good. I have no idea what that was.
Very quickly. I speak very good Russian. My Russian's terrible. That's my line.
Wonderful.
So, привет, как дела? Меня зовут Chris. Я работаю Russia Rugby.
So I think we've got your name as Chris, and you work for Russian Rugby.
Yeah, so that's it.
That'll get us a long way. Tell me, in Russia, is rugby played in sort of particular, it's obviously a huge country, which is very diverse. Are there particular pockets of Russia where rugby is particularly prevalent, or is it widely spread across the whole nation?
Yeah, I mean, it's such a vast country, and they've got their own internal league, and it's some massive distances. I mean, okay, they can't really, prior to the Pro 14, in Wales, where they had the Italian side, so that was a few hours travel, but now they got the South African team. So, Super Rugby and Pro 14, they're the most traveled teams in rugby at this moment in time. But within Russia itself, two of the biggest teams are 6 to 7 hours away by plane from Moscow. So you do have this, these two teams here, they play against each other, but then they will have teams flying 6-7 hours to play against them back to Moscow. So it's vast, huge different distances. There's in in England, in the English Championship, for me, it was 7-hour bus journeys from London to Penzance to play the Cornish Pirates. Okay, 7 hours there and back. For them, it's 7 hours on a plane to Krasnoyarsk, where NSA and Krasnoyar, two big teams are in Siberia, and then you've got quite a few teams around Moscow, and then other teams are dotted around. But they are all predominantly on closer to us, our side of Europe, apart from those two big teams far east in Krasnoyarsk.
So I've only ever travelled to Russia once, to Moscow once, and it was in that bit between Christmas and New Year, and it was obviously freezing, -20. I remember wearing 2 jumpers, 2 pairs of trousers, 2 coats, 2 hats, 2 of everything, and you could still only be outdoors for a couple of hours before you needed to go and get a hot drink.
Yeah.
How is rugby played in Russia in the middle of winter when it's so cold?
It's interesting. They just so the national team has their training bases down in Sochi, which is down south on the Black Sea, where the Winter Olympics were, and that can be 0 degrees, 5, -10 in December, January time. So we train in January.
It's a lot milder there.
It's Black Sea. Turkey's opposite. I know Turkey's a little bit further away, but it's very as a training base, we've never had an issue. Does get more challenging for teams that are further north, and they'll often have indoor training facilities. Heated underground pitches, and a lot of work is done to keep those pitches, So, but their season has just changed. So they're starting their season, hopefully relatively soon, and they've now gone more towards that kind of summer season, just to work with the conditions a bit better. Yeah.
So in normal times, you live in Wales, but you're working for a Russian rugby team. So in normal times, how much of the year are you in Russia? How does it work? How do you operate as a physiotherapist for a national sports team where the players are coming from all over the country? How does it work?
Yeah. So, it's not really that much different from the Wales and the England setups with regards to how it works. It's just about the vastness of travel and my commute and travel. Really the 3 busiest times of the year is Six Nations. So while there's a Six Nations going on, which we're all familiar with, there's a Rugby Europe kind of Tier 2 Six Nations going on. Okay, so currently in that is Georgia, Russia, Portugal, Belgium, Spain, and Romania. So you've got 6 teams there. So you've got that in January, February, March time. So we have some prep in Russia in January. This year we're in South Africa. We did 2 weeks in South Africa as a training camp. So we went there because it's quite easy from a visa point of view. There's kind of a good relationship between Russia and South Africa, countries in general, but also from a rugby point of view. So we got invited to stay with the Natal Sharks, and we did that in January. And then February and March, between those teams, home and away, we play each other once. So games in Russia and games, we had games in Belgium this year, and we were about to have a game in Georgia, and that got cancelled 4 hours after arriving in Italy. A bit of a shame. So you've got spring, and then you've got summer matches. So there's either a summer tour or a summer home series, and then just like England, Wales, autumn internationals as well. So you have these free pockets where you're all in doing camps and working with the players, preparing for the matches, and then
are you away from home for the bulk of those 3 chunks of time?
Yes, yeah. So it might be like 2 or 3 weeks on, 1 week back, 2 weeks on, 1 week back. So it's very much like that because they get down weeks and recovery weeks because you can't just keep hammering these rugby players week in, week out. So
you have a very well stamped passport.
Yes, it's absolutely battered. It's absolutely battered.
Can you fly to all these places from Cardiff? Because or are you on? Do you have to get to Heathrow first, mostly to?
Yeah, it depends on what day we fly. Depends. And it's you can do a Cardiff, Paris, Moscow, or you could do Cardiff, Amsterdam, Moscow, or you could just go straight to London and do London, Moscow. So it just depends on what time we need to arrive by. So, but yeah, we're well versed in that now. So generally, talk about commutes. So generally, if we could be starting work on a Monday at 8 a.m. So we set off 5, 6 a.m. on a Sunday morning to Heathrow, and then we get there probably 10, 11 o'clock at night. So,
gosh, you won't be cycling or walking to work then.
No.
So you were travelled to play a match and it got cancelled because of the lockdown when you were all there. So everybody just had to turn away and come home. But what has happened in general to elite sport with a view of this with this lockdown? Because it stopped, football stopped, rugby sport, athletics have stopped, Olympics cancelled.
Yeah, they're all mass gatherings. They're all considered mass gatherings, and it's just it is what it is, and it's very sad for a lot of society and the athletes. It's a big part of community's life, everyone's life, whether or not it's minis on a Sunday, taking your kids to football or rugby. It's health and sport and fitness at all levels, regardless if it's professional or not. It's been severely affected by this, and it can't be done because they're mass gatherings, and we need to maintain physical and social distancing. So that's all got stopped, and unfortunately, I think big events like the Olympics have been cancelled, and it's really difficult, challenging times for a lot of athletes at the moment. And it's very sad, and there's lots of elements to it. There's the mental health side, which is massive at the moment. Social and economically, it's a big source of income for a lot of athletes, a lot of professional players, but also for a lot of semi-professional clubs, even amateur clubs, if they are the centre of their community. And
huge part of identity. Sport is we all know this as physios, that a lot of what we do is give people their identity back by rehabilitating them so they can get back to their normal life and community. And if your profession as well is being an athlete and you're stopped, it's really hard.
And we're just each sport, is following, each sport and each country is following their country's guidelines and just waiting for. They're not waiting. They are planning. There's significant planning going on. I've been involved in a couple of meetings, and I've seen the amount of planning that's going on.
Made, and then obviously those plans need to fit with national and international guidelines and whatever timeframes, and adapted accordingly. Super. So at the moment, you are still operating, you are still working as a physiotherapist online for the Russian physiotherapy team, and we have to remember, you don't speak Russian very much.
No, I should speak Russian a lot more, but I've always been slow with languages.
So how does this work? How do you do online consultations where perhaps neither persons have a commonality in their language?
So, I mean, first of all, I've obviously built a relationship with a lot of these guys already, so I know a lot of them. So it was, if you've built up, and this is where I think the challenge is maybe, meeting and working with new clients versus your ongoing clients. I really think that in this period of time, you can work with your current clients, and you can also attract new clients. How I've been doing it over this period of time, and how I've been doing it for probably 2 years. It depends on the level of English, Russian.
Yes, of course, there's a lot of Russians and a lot of Russian rugby players that do speak English.
Yeah, there's quite a few, and that's probably where it first started. And we were able to build up relationships via, before Zoom exploded and all the various platforms that was using, WhatsApp video and FaceTime to check up on people, and then, via Google Translate, I could create rehabilitation programs. I would do the videos, and then I could do the text via Google Translate. So you've got a personalized video, Google Translate, reps, sets, coaching points, demonstration of the exercise by myself. There's huge amounts, and then that communication. I think these translating devices, they're fantastic these days. There's occasionally some funny words, come out. It's more about in pronunciation, I definitely extremely doable, more than doable.
And so I worked in The Hague for a little bit, and obviously the Dutch are renowned for being very good at speaking English, and I don't speak any Dutch, or I learned a couple of words when I learned back pain and neck pain, but that was about it. But even where the population as a whole is renowned for speaking very, very good English, and in The Hague, particularly English is very widely spoken, it was still very interesting how difficult some of the Dutch people found it when it came to talking about pain. They could talk to me about all sorts in English. I know you wouldn't have thought it was a problem, but as soon as it came to talking, particularly about the emotional aspects of pain, it was very challenging for a very fluent, somebody who was very fluent to be able to speak in English and not to be able to speak in their mother tongue. This is what I think you're describing, having that pre-existing relationship is very important to be able to do things remotely as well.
The trust was there. They've all met me. They've worked with me, and I think that's important. What's interesting is, the ones that speak very good English, it's almost a normal relationship. So for a long time, it was very easy to discuss problems, problem solve, help people to problem solve, help people to identify various self-treatment options that they can do themselves. Look at them doing their exercises, give hints and tips, coach them, demonstrate, and provide a stepwise progression and targets for them to hit and goals to hit, and that was done very easily done in English. And then what's interesting was that sometimes with some of them that didn't speak any English, it was almost easier to work with them online than it was face-to-face. Because you were already in that zone of communicating back and forth quickly by Google Translate, rather than trying to get someone to translate for you, which worked on site and face-to-face. We'd have some translation back and forth. But actually, it's doable, but it's time consuming. Whereas Google Translate actually worked out really well. So just by doing videos and text, it was actually it's surprisingly easy. So several of them, I'm working with them, recovering from long-term knee injuries, advising them on their progressions. They're sending me videos, demonstrations of their range of motion, and we've been highly critical of anything that we can look at and observe. We
so bring a physio to the Russian rugby team remotely in a language you don't speak sounds like it's very, very similar to homeschooling. If not easier. Because you know what you're doing.
Yeah. Homeschooling is definitely harder. Homeschooling in your own language is harder than doing physiotherapy online consultations in a second language.
Oh, well done. So therefore, we're all able to do it. There's no excuses.
Yeah, but it's the things that you can add as well. And I think physios will learn, our communication, I think, will get better during this period. We'll be able to have a little bit more deeper conversations about the effects of pain on their lives, on the emotional aspect, and the social economical implications of what's going on. I think there's different skills that we can now give with regards to, grade exposure, really, education. Something has been taken away, maybe that hands-on aspect has been taken away, and you can actually get quite inventive with your subjective and your objective. My objective testing, people have been knackered after. I've had people jumping, I've had people hopping.
Yeah, you're wearing them out. You really test. Well, you have to with elite sports people. You have to really test them
This is some of my UK online clients as well. Capacity testing, single leg bridges to failure, left to right testing. Sometimes I've just talked them through it, demonstrated. They've gone away and sent me back the results. So maybe I'd have a table of specific tasks and challenges that I'd like to get them a left-right baseline for. They go away and send back the results. Some will send video. Some will go, right, let's go. Off we go. Let's do it right now.
You're making me think about my shoulder. Chris knows that I've dislocated my shoulder twice. And it's probably not as A1 as it could be. Maybe I need to be asking Chris to put me through my paces to get to A1. Chris, you recently, I'm moving on quickly from that. You recently went to the Rugby World Cup. Tell us all about that experience, because that sounds like a real once-in-a-lifetime piece of magic.
It was unbelievable. I mean, Russia were in Japan's group, so we had the opening game. So we had the opening game of the Rugby World Cup, which everyone tunes into. And it was funny, as a physio, I was excited, but I thought I'd be more nervous, but I wasn't, because
all the cameras are on you when you have to run on the pitch, and anybody that knows anything about health is going to have an opinion on what you're doing.
Yeah, exactly.
And even if they know nothing about health, they're going to have an opinion on what you're doing.
Yeah, exactly. and the biggest match I'd done before that would probably be in front of 55,000 people, which is still big, but you forget that it's the 10 million watching on 10 plus million, or watching on TV, 20 million, 30 million, 100 million, whatever it was. But I mean, you go into this zone, you've done your training, you're experienced, you've done your, we do these yearly pitchside trauma courses, immediate care in rugby, immediate care in sport, and you've drilled that. I've been doing that every year for 12 years now. And you just go into this zone, and the crowd, everything like that, kind of gets blocked out. I noticed it more while the anthems were going on, which was amazing. And you notice it after the game. But once that game's on and you're tracking players, and someone's got a minor injury but they're able to carry on, the play's going on down there, and you're checking that player, watching play, checking that player, watching play, because you've got to keep an eye on the players and the injuries they may be carrying, alongside tracking the game at the same time. So you're kind of not watching it as a fan, you're watching it as a member of the medical team,
and you're in tunnel vision by the sounds of it. You're very much describing you're so focused that actually you don't notice the...
No, you don't until someone shows you a playback later on of maybe I've got this... someone said to me, I was taking this, they've got the camera of me taking this play off the pitch and saying you're looking extremely stressed, and I'm just like, you're so focused, and you're focused on what's going on, that you just kind of, you often got, you can't be going, you can't be going on the pitch.
And you got through to the quarterfinals, is that right?
Oh, no. So we played Russia. Russia played against Samoa, Ireland, and Scotland. We scored the opening try of the World Cup, and we had a real good battle against. It was really close against Japan in the first half, really close against Samoa in the second half. Unfortunately, we didn't win any games, and we put up a good fight against a lot of these teams. Put up a good fight against Ireland, but by the last game, I think it was one too many big games in a row, and Scotland, who were under pressure to get out of the group, did a good job on us, and we lost by a few.
Well done, well done. So hopefully the next World Cup, the virus will have passed, and
yes, Russia will be back. So yeah, that's the plan now. Is over the years is to get in a position where we can qualify from our Rugby Europe, or from the Europe pool and Europe group, and have an automatic qualification would be really nice. Well, a qualification for the tournament. Some teams are already automatically qualified based on their place in the last World Cup. We've still got to fight our way, but that's done over a number of years. So this is year 1, year 2, year 3. I think by year 3, you determine whether or not you're going to be in the World Cup or not. So, it was amazing. It was an amazing experience. Japan was amazing. The people were amazing, and it was nice to meet. There's lots of old friends as well that I've met. People that were one of my old London Welsh coaches, Danny Wilson, was the forward coach of Scotland. There were physios that I worked with at London Irish when we shared training sessions with them. He was working with Ireland Rugby.
Physio is a small world, but the niche of rugby physio is an even smaller world.
Yeah, massively. So it was good fun to see these people, and it was definitely a career highlight.
Oh, and hopefully the first of many more World Cups for you.
Hopefully, no, I'd love to do it again. I would love to do it again.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much for your time, Chris, and thank you very much for inspiring us on how we can work in languages that aren't our native language, perhaps, and manage appointments online and just get through adversity in general with resilience and a focus. I mean, that's what I really take from you talking about the World Cup. You were just so focused on your job, you were able to block out the noise, the judgment, the fear of the man on the sofa saying, "Oh, what's he doing?"
Yeah, you just, I think if you focus, you work hard. I think there's loads we can do with people online. The imagination is your limitation, and it's just the limitations you put on yourself. And I've had new clients in the UK, and it's going really well. It's going really, really well.
Wonderful. Thank you very, very much for your time, Chris. Take care, and we will see you soon.
I'll see you soon, Kate. Speak to you soon. Bye.